So, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today for Deputations 101. We're excited to have you here to learn about the city budget process and also learn how you can get involved in the city budget process. My name is Melissa Wong. I am the Director of Engagement and Strategic Initiatives at Social Planning Toronto. I'm joined here by my colleague, Shannon Spencer, and we're going to be going through um, the learning about the city budget process. So a little bit about the agenda. We're going to be giving a bit of an overview of the budget, why it's important to depute in the budget and the deputation process. And we're going to have a couple activities, whiteboard activities to help you build your skills in shaping your message in your deputation. So why depute? These are the things that we're going to go through in this session. So why it's important, how you can help shape the city budget by participating in deputations, getting to understand what's in this year's city budget. Also some tips and tricks in preparing yourself to speak in front of the members of the budget committee. And so we're going to help you build some of those skills. Oh, sorry. There we go. I'm going to turn it over to Shannon, who's going to share a little activity.
Thank you so much, Melissa. So thank you everyone for coming out this evening. We are really grateful that you're able to take time out of your day, out of this very snowy evening, to be part of this budget deputation learning session. And one thing we are very curious about is to know why you wanted to learn more about deputations. So we will be using the whiteboard um, uh, function here, which will make the screen stop working. But give me a second here as I open the whiteboard here. Hopefully it should be coming up. It's large enough. And I'm seeing some people engaged in here. If anybody's having tech issues, just let us know in the chat, and one of the team members will flag it for me. But anyway, basically, this whiteboard is basically a tool where on Zoom, where you, the attendees, the participants are able to, write, draw, share ideas, kind of like a physical whiteboard. So you should see the whiteboard here. There are a lot of things here blocking me, so I'm going to move things around. With a question asking, why are you interested in learning about deputations? And basically, what we'd like to know is like, you can click on a sticky, you can pick up a sticky note, so you should be able to click on them and be able to write on them to state to share why you're interested in deputations, whether it's like, for example, you just don't know what they are. You just want to learn more about them, especially whenever it comes to the city budget process, as well as is there's probably a issue or some sort of program that you would like to see more investment in, that you're super passionate about and you want to see changes. So yeah, please feel free to write that in the sticky notes, as Melissa also shared as well too. Also feel free to write it in the chat. You could also, if neither works for you, you can also raise your hand or briefly unmute yourself to share 1 or 2 sentences, keeping it brief, as to why you're interested in learning about deputations and the deputation process. So I'm seeing a lot of stuff coming in here. I'm gonna zoom in a bit so I can see. Oops. Okay. So I'm just gonna be summarizing and reading some things that we're having here. So someone says that they want to see more funding for peer programs. I'm seeing someone saying that they're nervous and want to learn to do better with public speaking. This is really small. Thank you. Well, some people say they want to put forward additional support for Indigenous engagement, some things like cycling, safe street advocacy, and want to learn more. For some reason, I can't move around the, the whiteboard. It's interesting. Okay. I'm not able to move around the whiteboard. But basically, I don't know if there's anything anyone shared in the chat, but again, those are a few reasons I'm seeing why you're interested in learning about deputations. For some reason, I can't move the whiteboard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can read the bottom one on the whiteboard if you want.
Okay. Okay. I think I finally got access. I figured out the problem. Okay. So, and then someone says, I want the budget committee to hear that we don't support the police budget. That's a popular opinion here. Okay. Learning stronger advocacy strategies, strengthening your personal story and community story. That is a key thing, as we will mention in our presentation today, that deputations are really a way to share your story, and as well as sharing information with others. And that's a good thing, sharing information with others, as well as your city councillors who make the decisions. So that's very important. And wanting to improve funding for public transit. So thank you everybody for sharing. So I'll stop the whiteboard for now. Feel free to continue sharing in the chat, as well as the reasons why you want to engage in deputation. Sorry, Melissa, could you reshare the slides?
Yeah, give me a second.
No problem.
There we go.
So yeah, you can go to the next slide. So yeah, as I mentioned, there are many reasons why someone will want to be interested in learning more about deputations. So deputations are basically a tool for advocacy. So it's a speech or sort of a public statement where you can voice your support or concern for a particular issue or topic. It helps decision makers at City Hall gain a deeper understanding of what this issue is and how it impacts people within the city and within communities. So basically, simply put, as I mentioned before, deputations are your stories where you share your experiences, what your needs are, and why something is important to you. So anyone could depute anyone. You can depute and advocate for change. It's your right to do so, no matter your status, where you live. You are allowed to depute. You're allowed to go to City Hall and voice your support and concern for a particular issue. Next slide. So deputations are essentially important within the city budget scope because this is where the government is deciding how much money they are investing in different programs and services for the year, which will impact all of us within the city. So as I mentioned, deputations are your stories, and stories are a very powerful advocacy tool. Your lived experiences are invaluable, they're important, they make things very relatable, and really emphasizes the impact and shapes policies and investments and programs. You don't need to be an expert to do a deputation. And trust me, when I did my first deputation, was not an expert at all. And I kind of just did it on a whim. So I think one key thing is that just sharing your story has a significant impact. and it really catches the attention of the committee members. You don't have to know all the numbers or technical terms that's within the city budget, but sharing why something's important to you and why you think there needs to be a change. I think the councillors and the committee members, the budget committee members, really, really, listen and relate and understand and really, pay attention to those stories. So that's why deputations are such a really great tool. And it's also a good way for them to know, what the committee and what the city wants and what services need to be expanded, improved, and what needs to be have more money put into it for the next year. Yeah, thank you. Next slide. So I'll just pass it back to Melissa.
So, thanks, Shannon. And I'm going to share a little bit about how having a deputation and getting involved in the city budget can have an impact. So here are some of the budget victories that we've been able to see over the past couple of years. So after years of advocacy, what we saw in the 2024 budget was the largest amount of funding for new services in a single year that we'd seen in at least a decade. And through ongoing advocacy that we've been doing, many deputations throughout the years, we also saw that the city and the mayor was able to get a new deal negotiated. And that meant that the city was in a better financial position. They were able to save over $2 billion. And we also saw a lot of advocacy through the TTC riders advocating for transit fare freeze, and we've seen that over the past couple of years. We're seeing that again this year. Things like having kids travel for free, or being able to hop on and off of transit for a 2-hour ticket. That all came through ongoing advocacy, through community members coming out to budget meetings and also meeting with city councilors and really pushing for those changes. Some of the other things that we've seen talking about the policing is an expansion of the Toronto Community Crisis Service. And this is an alternative to calling 911 that the city has implemented to support people who are in mental health crisis. It is now 24/7 and expanded across the city. We've also seen the open hours plan through the Toronto Public Libraries. That means by this year, every single library is going to be open 7 days a week. And we've seen the investments in the new universal student food program so that by next year, by the end of this year, every student in public school in the city is going to have access to a snack program every single day. And then we've also seen incredible advocacy, people coming out to Depute and really showing City Council and the Budget Committee that we need supports and investments in tenant support, eviction prevention, affordable housing, shelters, and drop-in. So, and climate action, a number of different areas. And this doesn't happen because City Council just decides it's a good idea. It comes from hearing from members of the public like you. And so, sorry. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of the city budget and give you a sense of how it's developed and what's in this year's city budget. So the 2026 City of Toronto operating budget is $18.8 billion. And the operating budget pays for things like the services and the programs that the city delivers. That includes things like community housing, shelters, childcare, libraries, transit and recreation services. And that budget is larger than some of the budgets of some provinces in Canada. The budget also covers the 10-year capital plan. And for Toronto, it's now $59.6 billion. And this is the money that gets allocated towards building and maintaining the city's infrastructure, things like roads and sewer systems, but it also goes towards fixing and building new recreation centers and libraries and housing. I'll just share a little bit about the city budget process. So it takes almost a whole year for the city to go through its whole budget process. It begins with the city staff kind of in early spring, looking at where developing their budget numbers, what the programs are that they need to deliver. And then it leads into public consultations in the fall that the mayor and members of city council hold. And this helps the city staff and the mayor and members of the budget committee really understand what the public wants to see prioritized in the budget. And then in January, so just on January 8th, the budget was launched, and that's the staff recommended budget. And then there's an opportunity for the public to share your feedback through deputations and a telephone town halls. One of the telephone town halls is happening tonight, the next one's tomorrow. And you can share your views in the budget. And then the budget committee hears this feedback and then make recommendations to the mayor on what changes might be needed for that recommended budget. And then the mayor is required under the Strong Mayors Act to release her budget by February 1st. And then there's a bit of time before the city council then holds a special meeting to make any final changes to the budget. And that's going to be happening on February 10th. Okay, so as I mentioned, there's a public consultation process that happens in the fall. And along with the kind of large meetings that are held at the civic centers as well as online, the city also partnered with Albion Neighborhood Services to host local community-focused consultations with low-income residents. And these were smaller focus group-like sessions that were held at community-based agencies. And some of the things that were identified through those sessions are not that surprising and align often also with what came out of the public surveys. But really, they talked about affordable housing, the high cost of living, transit, the lack of affordable childcare in different parts of the city, and also the lack of good jobs and tenant support. And that was brought forward, and you can see some of that. There's going to be a city report that's available where you can see the summary of that information. So what's in this year's budget? So there are a lot of important new investments, and that includes increases to the city's rent bank, Rent Safe, which is a program that supports tenants and ensures that landlords are keeping their buildings in good condition. There's an expansion of an air conditioner pilot that started last year. And so it provides free air conditioners to low-income seniors. And this year it's going to be expanded to include families with infants. There's, as I mentioned, the expansion of the student nutrition program to all schools, and also they're expanding the snack program to the city's camp programs that happen in March break in the summer. There's a lot of investments going into transit, so this is the first year we're seeing transit fare capping that's proposed in the budget, and that just means that instead of paying upfront for your Metro Pass, you can tap and it will, once it hits the maximum of 47 rides, then you will no longer have to pay anymore. And the idea behind that is that in future years, we'll be able to see that lower and lower and just reducing the cost of transit for everybody. There's also going to be a fare free, so no TTC fare increase will happen this year in this proposed budget. And there's also an expansion of the Toronto Community Crisis Service. They're doing a pilot on transit to support people who are in mental health crisis on the transit system. As I mentioned, there's a number of public library programs that are also being launched this year. It's the open hours program, as I mentioned, but there's also programs such as the Reducing Seniors Social Isolation program, a financial empowerment service that they're expanding, and a social and crisis support service that is being invested in. Another exciting one is that there's going to be free trips to the zoo for all Toronto students so that it isn't a cost barrier for classes to be able to send their students to the zoo. So I'll just share, so when you go to Depute at a budget committee meeting, you will get to present in front of some of these members of the budget committee, and they split up between the different areas. There's 2 days of deputations, and they host them at the different civic centers. So these are the members of the budget committee. There's Lily Cheng. She is from the Willow, she represents the Willow area. Gord Perks it represents Parkdale. Shirley Carrolls from Don Valley North. Jamal Myers is in the North Scarborough and the Scarborough Agincourt area. Amber Morley represents South Etobicoke, and Chris Moyes from Toronto Centre. So those are the members of the Budget Committee. They hear the budget deputations, but also make the recommendations to the mayor on the budget decisions. So the key budget dates, as I mentioned, we're kind of right in the middle. Next week is when the budget committee deputations are going to take place, and that's when you'll get your chance to hear them. And on February 10th is when council finally does their final vote on the budget. Social Planning Toronto is going to be holding a rally that day, so we encourage you to come out. We'll share all the links about those events as well. So this is the deputation schedule. So as I mentioned, uh, the um, the budget committee. Oh, sorry, I'm not on the wrong slides. Looking at the wrong slide. So yeah. So here is the budget committee dates. On the 20th and 21st is when the deputations will take place. Um, so in the deputations, you can register both to speak in person. So if you're registering to City Hall, you can register to speak in person at City Hall, or you can register for that same time slot, but give your deputation online. And to do that, you have to register through the Budget Committee Administrator, and we can share those links we'll share those links in the chat of where you can either register online or send an email to request which session you'd like to join. The deadline to register, they ask that you register by 4:30 p.m. the day before the meeting to make sure that you are on the list. Sometimes some of the spots fill up fast. So we do encourage you, if you do plan to register, do so soon. And then when you're sending an email, you just indicate whether you want to be presenting in person or virtually so that they can share the links with you. Um, and then you should get a confirmation once you send that email. So we are have a bit of a break planned in the chat, but before we go to break, I just wanted to see if there's any questions from anybody about any of the information that we've presented so far. And sorry, I've been sharing screen, so it's a little bit hard for me to view the chat. Um, uh, but if I've missed anything, please just let me know. Okay. Any questions right now? Okay, I'm not sure.
All right, there's a
Is that
question. There's a question here. Are there specific issues that SPT issues, like specific issues that SPT is more focused on others?
That's a great question. Our focus is like we don't do a broad. Our focus is on social issues and community services. And so for example, we have our budget town hall next week, and our one of our senior researchers, Beth Wilson, will share highlights and analysis of the city budget. And so she's going to go through some of the things that I talked about today, a lot of the things like that support community services. Our focus may also is often on things that are related to poverty reduction or addressing the mitigation of poverty and programs that support low-income residents in Toronto. At our budget town hall, we'll also have speakers that will touch on other topics such as TTC riders. We'll have some library workers joining us, the Toronto Environmental Alliance, as well as the Canadian Centre for Housing Rights, as well as the Toronto Drop-In Network. So we try to touch on many of these other topics related to social health and community services.
Thanks. And I see that Anna is also responding to Gabe in the chats, asking, do we need to send in a copy of our deputation? So Anna, for those who can't see the chat, we share that you're not obligated to send in a copy if you're deputing in person, but I do recommend that you do. it's a good practice that we, even though we're deputing in person, we still send our comments. And I'll talk a bit more about that after the break and I'll show how you can do that on the actual website. But just so it's there in public record, so you have it, the verbal deputation, but also written if you're able to. And yeah, as Adam also mentioned, there are multiple ways to make your voice be heard at Budget Committee. So, and Melissa identified some of those ways earlier.
Yeah. And one thing I forgot to mention is that all of the meetings are broadcast on YouTube. So we'll show you a little bit later, where you can find those links, but you can go on the city's website and see past deputations, and that's a good chance. We had one lined up, but the sound isn't quite working. So, but it's a good way to see how others have presented their deputations, and how they've kind of shaped their message and tell their stories. Okay. So should we go ahead and take a quick break right now? All right. So it is 7:37, so we'll start back at 7:42.
Great. Awesome. So welcome back, everyone. I know that was a pretty short break. But now we're going to go into sort of the nitty-gritty into deputation. You had an overview of the city budget and why it's important to really have your voice be heard during this process. So just by, I guess, a show of hands or, probably put it in the chat, has anyone here ever made a deputation before, especially for the city budget committee? And if you're okay with it, if one or two people want to briefly share what that experience was like for them, feel free to share it in the chat. I'm seeing some people saying no already, or you can raise your hand and share briefly how you felt or what that experience was like. Okay, I'm seeing some people saying yes. Someone says, yes, it is a great way to see civics in action. I definitely agree with that. Yes, nerve-wracking. Yes, I know. I totally understand that. Lisa says, I haven't, but my husband, who's currently making dinner, totally get it. It's that time of night, has and can share his experience. Okay. I mean, sure, if they're okay with sharing that experience. I know they're making dinner right now, which is super important. Anyone else? Yeah, so does anybody want to unmute and tell us about your experience?
I can.
Okay, awesome. I cannot see who this is, but it's
talking,
but yes.
I'm the husband who is making dinner.
Oh, perfect. Awesome.
Yeah, I've done 2 deputations. It wasn't for the budget committee. It was for a local subcommittee for putting in some bike lanes, as well as when the TTC was doing the DuPont or the Dufferin Bathurst rapid transit. Very different experiences. Yeah, the first time was actually kind of nerve-wracking, like someone else said, because I thought I had 5 minutes, but I only had 3, and it was perhaps not the most receptive subcommittee. They were really, really sticking to the time. But the second one was actually a much better experience. I kind of had a better sense of what to expect. I assumed 3 minutes, not 5. And I think it was actually Mayor Chow who was sort of chairing it, so there was a little more leeway. But it was a great experience. Like, I'm really glad I did it. Yeah.
All right, thank you for sharing. Sorry, I didn't get your name. What was your name?
Devin.
Devin. Thank you, Devin, for sharing. I definitely understand that. For me, I could definitely say I had sort of like a reverse of that experience. Like the first time I did a deputation, it went, smoothly. It was reduced to 3 minutes because there were a ton of people. It was a deputation in relations to the proposed shelters. Um, and then as well and that was at the Economic Development Committee. And then the following week, I did a deputation at the Planning and Housing Committee, where they seem to be, it really depends on committees. They're more focused on like, they want to make sure that you stay on topic and will cut you off if you're not, at least my experience. And because that day we also had like over 80 people speaking. So it was also reduced to 3 minutes. And they will, if you're not on topic, they will stop you. So that was my experience. So I felt a little bit more nervous for the second one than the first one, but it really varies. So thank you for sharing, everybody. Next slide. Yeah, so this is just sort of like a very simplified overview of what the deputation process may look like, and a process you can follow as you prepare for your city budget deputations if you plan to do those. So firstly, I highly recommend you check out the resources available to get an idea of what's in this year's proposed city budget. So the city has many reports, presentations, and notes on their website that breaks down and really simplifies the different parts of the budget. We'll share a link to that in the chat. But on this website, the documents are divided by the different divisions. So you can have children's services, housing, transportation, environment, the list goes on. On that website, the city budget launch presentation, which kind of gives an overview of everything, is also available on that website. So Social Planning Toronto also has a city budget watch blog and a webpage with resources that could also help you understand the key different aspects of the budget and can also help you as you prepare your deputation. So to be able to depute, though, you'll need to register on the city's website, which I will kind of go through in a bit. But as Melissa mentioned, we highly recommend you register to depute to speak before the city budget committee at least like 4:30 the day before, because sometimes they'll leave the registration open on the day, but it's really iffy. If there are a lot of people that plan to talk, they will close registration on a day. And if you haven't registered, you won't, unfortunately, they won't have the time to hear your deputation. I believe last year, over all the days and all the areas, the spaces, the locations where they did city budget deputations, it was over 300 people speaking. So that kind of gives you an idea of like how many people are speaking. And you're usually given 5 minutes, as Devin mentioned, but a lot of times it can be sort of reduce that 3 minute speaking time. So having to really prepare for that. And sometimes you will be sitting down there. They usually release a speakers list so you can see where your name is on the list. And sometimes your name could be at the top. It could be in the middle. It could be at the end. It really depends on what time you registered to speak. Depending on where your name is on the list, you can be there for quite a while, for a few hours. So just to give you a heads up about that. So when you're preparing your deputation, you can again use the resources that we linked in the chat, and as well as, this is the part where you are writing and you're organizing your thoughts, your stories, and your recommendations to the city budget committee into that 3 to 5 minute speech. And we will also be sharing a template in the chat, but also in our follow-up email to everybody, where that could help you. It'll help you sort of organize those ideas into sort of a coherent flow or form. And as well as when you're preparing your deputation, I do recommend that you practice as much as possible and time yourself so you know you are able to speak within that 3 to 5 minute time. So if you're doing a verbal deputation, as I mentioned, we also recommend emailing or submitting a copy of a deputation for the public record. And the deputation period, as you know, is on January 21st and 20th and 21st. So where you can attend physically in person at the different locations. So at City Hall, Etobicoke Civic Center, North York, or Scarborough. Or you can attend virtually online through the online client, video conference client. And yeah, so just a note as well too that when you're doing deputations, these are also being live streamed on YouTube at the same time. So just keep that in mind as you're speaking and sharing your deputations. As well as after you finish speaking, your 3 to 5 minutes are up, the committee members may ask you questions. So also just be aware of that. Next slide. So I believe it was shared, I saw it pop up there at some point, shared in the chat, but you could email the email shown here, I think it's also linked in the chat, or call a number to register for the budget committee deputations next week. So you have, and there's also the option to go on the website to register as well too. So there is the toronto.ca/council. We're able to sort of go to that webpage, and I think it'll be okay, Melissa, if I'm able to share my screen so I can kind of just walk through what that might look like. Perfect. Thank you. I'm gonna find the share screen option. There you go. So let me, okay. I hope you guys are seeing my screen. Are you able to see it?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And thank you for vocalizing that because I was not seeing anybody. So yeah, when you go on that link, like toronto.ca/council, this shows up here. So what I usually typically do is you can click on view meetings, schedule agendas and minutes. So this sort of big blue button here, which will sort of take you to this page where you can click on the committees. And I think Anna also shared a short link that sent you straight to this page as well too. And here you're able to sort of navigate to the bottom here. Excuse me. Sorry, give me a second. Sorry about that. Yes, you're able to sort of navigate to this page where they list all the different boards and committees that that report to City Council, including these budget subcommittees where you will be making a deputation. So there's a larger sort of budget committee where the different budget committee members go to different locations. So they're able to split up across the city on those 2 days. So they're able to hear as many people as they could. So there, as Melissa showed in the table before, so there is a subcommittee at City Hall. There'll be one at Etobicoke Civic Center, North York Civic Center, Scarborough Civic Center. So for example, if I probably live closer to City Hall or downtown, I will click on this budget subcommittee at City Hall, where thankfully it sends me right to next week's budget subcommittee meeting where people are able to do deputations. And excuse me, you can sort of like click this agenda item here, right here, the BV 12.1. And that will kind of open up this page where you're able to see, thankfully it lists all the space, like all the locations and the times with the address. And you can click here to sort of request to speak. And when you click this button, your email client might show up, or there might be a sort of a form where that comes up where you can fill out the information, which I'll show you in a second. You can also, if you don't want to do a verbal deputation and rather just send something like your written comments, there's that option as well too, where you can click submit comments here or email item. So I'm just gonna stop sharing.
Shannon, I'll just add also that for each of those, there's actually 3 different times. So you can pick the time for each location. There's 3 different times. So there's 1:30 to 4:30 at City Hall. There's also after 6 o'clock, and then also, let's see,
9:30 to 12:30 p.m.
9:30 to 12:30 p.m. So you can click on each of those just to directly register for a particular time period as well.
Thank you, Melissa. Yeah.
So I'll just share my screen again so you can get back to the presentation.
I do also want to note as well too, on the webpage, they do recommend, as we said, please register by Monday, January 19th. And you will be given instructions on once you register on how to, when you do your deputations, what to expect. So when you click that request to speak, this email sort of template, something that looks very similar to this might come up. So you'll see the subject line, request to speak on, it could be the 20th or the 21st. The agenda item, for example, that agenda item that we clicked on before. And yeah, so you just fill out the information, you put in your name. If you're representing an organization or sort of like a grassroots group, you can put that under organization, and your contact information if needed, and then send, and you should receive an email kind of confirming your registration. Yeah. Next slide. So just sort of a few, tips and tricks as you're, preparing and delivering your deputation. So when you're writing your deputation, I do recommend preparing and deciding on your key messages first. So what do you want to recommend? Do you want to recommend, for example, increase in affordable housing? Do you want to recommend having more community space, more youth programs, more community grants, so grassroots groups and community groups can, do more within their communities? What are the issues that you want to bring to the budget committee's attention? So as I noted, you may have 3 to 5 minutes to speak. If you do have a shorter deputation time, if they do shorten it to 3 minutes, so I do recommend having sort of a 5-minute version of your deputation and then a shorter 3-minute version, 3-minute or less version. And when you create that shorter version, probably try putting your recommendations and key messages at the start, so the important parts are not cut off if you run out of time, so the committee are able to hear those important parts. And again, I would repeat those important parts again at the end to really instill it within the committee members' minds, and just know in the committee members' minds, and just know that know your committee, who we showed who the committee members are. Just have an idea of what their values are, who they are. That will help you in preparing your deputations, but also help you in knowing, kind of having an idea of what kind of questions to get. And that's easy. You can easily find that out online if you look at past deputations, especially where the current committee members are involved, whether it's through the budget deputation or other sort of city council committees that they're part of. You get an idea of, who they are and what questions they might ask, as well as, make sure you connect your lived experiences and stories with the city policies and the budget your budget ask to really strengthen your message, and keep track of time and stay on topic. Making sure you kind of avoid jargon, kind of being simple and getting to the point so your message is easily understood. And if you are joining virtually, so as I mentioned, you can join in person at the 4 different locations, or you can join online. I do recommend testing your texting your speakers, your mic, your video, to make sure everything is working. So nothing goes wrong or nothing holds you back on a day. And they will, once you register and you indicate if you want to, they'll send you instructions of how to join online once you register. So when registering as well too, you can identify your accommodation needs. So ASL interpretation and language translation are available. Just make sure you do it, in advance. So when you email the budget committee administrator, just let them know about what your accommodation needs are. And they will walk you through that and try and make sure that is available for you on the day of the deputations. Keep track of submission and registration deadlines. Bring a friend on Ally to support you if you want, while you do your deputation. So you have that moral support there as well too. Next slide. Are we gonna test this video or should we? Okay, deputation template. So as I mentioned, are we gonna do the video?
No, I don't think. I think we'll skip the video just in case it's going to be hard to interpret.
I stuck a link in the chat if anyone wants to see it to the timestamp.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah. So unfortunately, the video, we're having a little tech issues where the video's volume is a little too low. But we will be sending these slides, and then as well as Anna, thank you so much for sharing the link with the timestamp. But we wanted to show an example of someone doing a deputation at the budget committee, and it was a youth from the Toronto Youth Council talking about her experiences and sharing why, sharing like what she wanted to see happen in the budget and why there should be more investment in sort of youth and people, newcomers within the city as well too. So highly recommend watching it. It's really inspiring to see the youth really engaging in these civic processes. So yeah. As I mentioned, we'll be sharing this deputation template to kind of help you organize your ideas and deputation. So it's kind of sort of divided into 3 parts. You have the introduction where you introduce yourself, state whether you are concerned or support, or would like to see increased investment in the case of the city budget in a certain area or topic. If you for your 3-minute version, I also recommend you put your recommendations at the forefront in that introduction section. And then in your body is where you share your stories related to the budget and any sort of other information to support why you think there needs to be increased investment within the city budget. And if you're in support of something that they recommended in the staff proposed budget or not. As well as, and any sort of examples, that you think that highlights the impact of your ask on the community, on the community and the city as a whole. And then in your conclusion, you reiterate your recommendations and just thank the committee for giving you the time and the opportunity to speak. So as I mentioned, you have 3 to 5 minutes. So making sure that all of that fits within those 3 to 5 minutes. Yes. So, we have another whiteboard activity. Fun times. Okay. So hopefully it works this time.
I stopped sharing, so maybe that will help.
Okay, yeah. Interesting. So I'm going to share here another whiteboard. So very similar kind of thing. You're going to have post-its. There'll be 2 questions here. So it's loading on my side. So hopefully it shows up on your side here. So we have 2 questions here. So the first question is, okay, and some of you already shared it in the first sort of whiteboard activity of where do you want the city of Toronto to increase investment? Where do you want to see them put more money towards? So it's, for example, we have here is housing, employment. I'm seeing somebody right in there. Libraries, definitely agree with that. Community space, etc. And then the second question here is, what message do you want to share with the budget committee? So that'll be your key messaging. So it's kind of like a practice of creating the key messaging for your deputations. So you, on the side, you have the general topics of the things you want to have increased investments. And then how are you going to ask this budget committee? So what are your key messaging and why? So your key message is like, why are you asking? And what is the impact? I'm probably throwing in, some of that lived experience there as well too. So feel free again to use the whiteboard. Use the chat as well too. If there's something in the chat, please flag it because I can't see the chat while I'm sharing the whiteboard. And if somebody even wants to unmute and say a few words, feel free to do so
Yeah, if
as well
anybody
too.
wants to share examples, so add that in there too. But feel free to just share also your stories. As Shannon talked about, stories are kind of one of the most powerful ways you can show why these investments are important, what it means to you, what the kind of impact it's going to have. So we'd love if you could also include in here on the whiteboard, or also just put your hand up. We'd love to hear your stories about, what is it in your life that has made you decide that you want to go and speak to the budget committee? Shelter supports, transit, safe cycling infrastructure, libraries.
Being here as well. I'm going to move this one out of the way.
Young
Hopefully
people
nobody's
can't
writing on
afford.
it. Yeah. Live in the city anymore. Bike lanes save lives. Libraries give me a place to go with my kids without spending money. Definitely. I don't know if there's anything in the chat. Yeah, well, feel free.
I've forgotten how to raise my hand on Zoom, so I'm just
Okay, yeah,
gonna
just unmute
speak
yourself.
if that's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. No, it's fine. That's totally fine. I can't see. Okay, Jamie. Okay, I was like, I can't see who's talking, but thank you,
Oh,
Jamie.
it's me. So I'm just wondering, I want to talk about why, well, no, I want to, in my deputation, I would want to say something that like transit is important to me. I rely on it. I don't think that it should be a huge expense for anyone in the city, so I'm happy to see that, rates aren't increasing this year. I don't really want to talk personally about how, like, I take it every day and this is my like I don't really want to expose like my, you know especially if I'm doing it on like if it's online and all that. I'm
Oh
just
yeah, no, that's
wondering if it's just like if I just am up there for 30 seconds and I say, this is my ward, I support transit, I'm glad to see there are no fare increases, and I want that to be in the final budget. Is
yeah.
that sufficient?
That's totally fine. Yeah, that's totally
Okay.
fine. And that they'll know for sure that, that emphasizes the importance of having
Okay.
it in the budget, right? So not only
Yeah.
sharing concerns or impacts, but even just that emphasizing you support something is very helpful as well too. during this
Okay, okay.
process.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for that. If there's any other questions as well too, or comments, feel free to unmute, raise your hand. I'm seeing things pop up.
We
but-
have a couple things in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you.
So we have one comment for, I guess, the whiteboard, which is providing adequate support to people who are removed from encampments,
Yes.
which obviously is a big one and connected to a lot of programs in the city budget. We also have a question. I'm sorry I missed the first half, and this might have already been mentioned. Are written deputations any less effective than spoken and in-person ones? I'm curious, how does the subcommittee formally analyze deputations?
I think I'm happy to answer that one. I think we always encourage deputations not over, but along with written submissions. There isn't always a guarantee that the members of the budget committee will go and read all of those written deputations. One advantage, though, about a written deputation is that it becomes part of the public record. So you can share it, and all members of City Council have access to it. But you can also share it publicly. You can share that link out to other people to share, to show that you share your message. But the deputations, you kind of have the budget committee with as a captive audience. They have to be there to listen to you. And so if you're there giving a deputation, I will say that sometimes they're not always paying attention, but when you're sharing your story, it is hard for them to not pay attention to what you're saying. Um, and so we do encourage it. Both in virtual and in person are both encouraged, I would say. But you can actually do both. As Shannon was saying, if you've done a verbal deputation, either in person or online, you can also share that content and submit it as a written submission as well. And so you have the advantage of both being on the YouTube recording and on the website, your written deputation on the website. I hope that answers your question. Any other questions?
See someone heard here to the crisis response service expansion. Will additional funding be provided to the indigenous specific responders? Is there anything else in the chat?
Not right now.
Seeing someone typing.
I got a question. Any advice for if we want to suggest not an increase, but rather a tempering on something, say for police service? So that's a great question. And absolutely, even the city asks this question in their budget survey and in budget consultations. They ask, what do you want to see increased and what do you want to see decreased in terms of spending on the budget? And the police service is always one of the top three services that people say they want to see decreased in the city budget. It's one of the biggest budget lines in the city. And I think we're spending probably about $1 billion in police now in the city. So over $1 billion. And so certainly if you want to see the city spending their budget dollars more wisely, property tax dollars more wisely, then certainly you should share that, particularly when it